How to serve an RTDRS application. After listening to this webinar, refer to the RTDRS Rules of Practice and Procedure for more details. What does it mean to serve the application? A party who is named as a respondent in an application must be notified well ahead of time so that they can be prepared to attend the hearing and respond to the allegations. The legal words for giving the file application package to the other party are service and serve. The applicant must serve the application package on the respondents as early as possible, but at least 3 clear days before the hearing date. The date of service, date of hearing, weekends and holidays are not counted as part of the 3 clear days. For example, if the hearing is scheduled for Tuesday, service of the application package on the respondents must be completed no later than the Wednesday prior. What do you serve? When you file your application with the RTDRS, you will receive a notice of hearing form that gives the date, time, and method of the hearing. The filed application form, documented evidence, together with the notice of hearing, are referred to as the application package. The next step is to give a copy of the entire application package to the respondents. You must serve a copy of the entire application package on each respondent named in the application. How can a landlord serve their current or former tenant? If you are a landlord, you may serve documents to your tenant by the following methods. By email. As long as the parties have previously communicated by email, or the parties previously agreed to communicate by email, and the party serving the documents is able to demonstrate to the tenancy dispute officer that the email was delivered, such as with a reply, a read receipt, or verifying software. Personally. When serving personally, you must make several attempts to give the documents to the tenants until the tenant is served. These service attempts should be at different times throughout the days and evenings. Keep a note of the dates, times, and locations of your attempted personal service for use when filling out the declaration of service by landlord. By registered mail. When serving by registered mail, use the address of the rented residential premises and keep all receipts and tracking numbers. Service is completed on the date the tenant signs for the registered mail. You will need this information to fill out the declaration of service by landlord. If you have been unsuccessful in serving the tenants and believe, based on available information, that the tenants are evading service or temporarily absent from the premises, you may serve an adult who is 18 years or older, who appears to live with the tenant, or post the application packages in plain sight on the rental premises. Normally on the door used most often by the tenants. If the tenant is a corporation, the application package may be served at the registered office address of the corporation as shown on a corporate registration search. Searches can be done at any Alberta registry agent. What if you can't serve your former tenant by any of these methods? If the tenant no longer lives at the rental premises, posting documents on the premises will not be considered proper service. However, you can serve the tenant in person at any location. Alternatively, you can attempt service by registered mail to the last known address of the tenant, which may be the address rented to the tenant by the landlord, as the tenant may have their mail forwarded, or to the tenant at a different address as long as the tenant signs for the registered mail, acknowledging it has been received. How can a tenant serve their current or former landlord? If you are a tenant, you may serve documents to the landlord by the following methods. By email. As long as the parties have previously communicated by email, or the parties previously agreed to communicate by email, and the party serving notice is able to demonstrate to the tenancy dispute officer that the email was delivered, such as with a reply, a read receipt, or verifying software. Personally. If you are unable to serve your landlords on your first attempt, you must try several more times to give the application package to the landlords. Keep a note of the dates, times, and locations of your attempted personal service for use when filling out the declaration of service by tenant. You may serve your landlords by registered mail at the address where you pay rent, or the address written on a notice given to you by the landlord or posted on the rental premises. Keep all receipts and tracking numbers. Service is completed on the date the landlord receives the registered mail. You will need this information to fill out the declaration of service by tenant. If the landlord is a corporation, you may serve the application package at the registered office address of the corporation as shown on a corporate registration search. Searches can be done at any Alberta registry agent. Service on a corporate landlord can be personal or by registered mail. What if you have not been successful after several reasonable attempts to serve using the methods mentioned on the previous slide? You can apply to the RTDRS for permission to serve the documents in a different way. This is called substitutional service. You must complete a declaration in support of substitutional service in which you list your previous attempts at service, request approval to serve in another way, and explain why you believe the other way will be effective. A tenancy dispute officer will review the declaration in support of substitutional service and make a decision on the request. Who decides if service is proper? Be sure that you can prove with evidence when and how the respondents were given the application package, because if they deny receiving it, the tenancy dispute officer will consider the evidence and decide whether the documents were served properly. How do I prove service has been properly completed? The person who served the documents, such as the process server if one is hired, must complete the declaration of service. If the documents were served by registered mail, you must attach the postal receipt with the tracking number and the signature of certificate of delivery confirmation document to the declaration. This document can be obtained through a Canada Post Office or their website. If the documents were served via email, you must attach the proof that the email was delivered, such as a reply email or a read receipt or verifying software. If the documents were served by a method of substitutional service, you must attach proof as directed by the tenancy dispute officer in the substitutional service order. Prior to your hearing, submit the declaration of service using the RTDRS e-filing service. You may also submit the declaration in person or by fax. What if there is an emergency or urgent situation that requires a hearing in less than a week? In cases where a landlord needs to terminate the tenancy urgently because a tenant has done or permitted significant damage to the rental premises, or assaulted, or threatened to assault the landlord or another tenant, the landlord may apply to reduce the notice period to the tenants. This is referred to as an abridgment of service. The landlord must complete a declaration in support of an abridgment of service and provide evidence to support the request. A tenancy dispute officer will review the declaration and make a decision about the request. Only the most urgent cases will be granted an abridgment of service. What if I need to serve notice of evidence that was not in the application package? The applicant may submit additional evidence, and the respondent may submit defense evidence to the RTDRS via the e-filing service, in person or by fax, at least 24 hours in advance of the hearing. A copy of such evidence must also be served on the other party at least 24 hours in advance of the hearing. What methods of service are not accepted? The only methods of service accepted by the RTDRS are listed in this webinar. The RTDRS does not accept service by regular mail or by placing documents in mailboxes, under doors, or inside of rental premises unless a tenancy dispute officer has pre-approved that method of service or deems that method of service to be valid at the commencement of the hearing. More information is available at www.rtdrs.alberta.ca.